Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience today. Obviously, we've had an extremely busy day, and this is the first opportunity that we've had to update you in person. I'll start with the most recent details on the homicide in Marlborough Park. We're investigating a fatal assault that occurred at approximately 5 a.m. today in the 5500 block of Maddock Drive, Northeast. Upon arrival at the scene, officers found a 15-year-old male in medical distress. He was transported to hospital where he was pronounced deceased. An autopsy has been completed, and the victim has been identified as Leslie Sunwalk of Calgary. We do have a suspect in custody. The suspect is also 15 years old. However, we are not in a position to lay charges at this time, and the investigation is continuing. Both the suspect and victim are known to each other. We will update you on this investigation as we move forward. I can confirm that this address is the same location where Tyler Sanderson was killed in May of 2016. I cannot at this time confirm whether there is a familial connection to today's homicide. Roughly 7 hours later, just after noon, officers were called to the 1800 block of 39th Street Southeast for a report of a man in medical distress. Upon entry to the home, 5 officers experienced the impacts of pepper spray that had been used on the victims inside the residence prior to our arrival. Those victims are 2 children, aged 3 and 5, as well as their grandmother. Once able to search the home, a man was found deceased inside. An autopsy on the man found inside the home is expected to take place tomorrow. Another female who was in the home at the time also sustained non-life-threatening injuries. She was transported to hospital in stable but serious condition. The homicide unit has a suspect in this case, Deibi or David Monterroso Salazar, 29 of Calgary, is currently being sought in connection with this homicide. I can say today's homicides are not connected. However, both are considered targeted. I will now answer any questions.
Can you say anything about the injury sustained in Forest Lawn? There was obviously contamination we were talking about. What about the person who was taken to hospital?
She was taken to hospital in serious but stable condition.
And stab wounds or?
Yeah, as far as the cause of her injury, we're obviously in the early stages of the investigation. Autopsy on the deceased will occur tomorrow. Then we'll be releasing the actual cause of death, or weapon in this case.
Can you talk about motive? You're saying you believe this is domestic in nature?
Yes. The surviving female victim was estranged from her suspect. The deceased male found inside the residence was a male friend of our surviving female victim that was transported to hospital.
Sorry, just to make sure that we get this right or be clear, it's the person who was taken to hospital, the younger of the 2 adult women?
Yes. Yes.
Obviously a very busy day for you guys. What's this meant in terms of these 2 scenes and now a third possible one on the go?
Well, obviously it's very taxing for our investigators and resources. For the homicide in Forest Lawn, we had great support from our domestic conflict unit. And for the homicide in in District 4 earlier, they had support from other units besides homicide.
Is it a district helping out with you guys? Or, because you got 3 current scenes taped off at the moment, I'm assuming?
Yes, obviously extremely taxing on resources. I know Superintendent Barlow will speak about the overall impact on the service. From a homicide perspective, we are obviously investigating 8 homicides that have occurred in the last 4 weeks. We are extremely busy, and if it wasn't for the support of other units within our service, we wouldn't be able to bring these to a conclusion.
What do you attribute to these? This is a bigger spike than what's we've normally seen.
Yeah, I can't speculate on that. What I can say is that the 8 homicides that I'm referring to, they're not related, and we believe that they were targeted. These are not random homicides.
Can I go to back to Maddock Drive for 1 second?
Sure.
He's 15-year-old, hasn't been charged or no charges yet.
Right.
Does he live at the residence?
No, he does not.
And so he is a young offender.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We have a young person who's deceased, and we have a young person in custody on that one.
The gentleman was screened on the police in the second homicide prior to this
Yes, he was.
Was it domestic in nature as well?
There is a domestic history, and currently in this homicide, we do have the domestic conflict unit helping, and we are seeking his whereabouts as we believe he is responsible for the homicide which occurred at that residence in Forest Lawn.
Does he have ties to the city, or are you worried he might have left?
He is from Calgary, and we're currently seeking his whereabouts in the Calgary area.
Good afternoon. My name is Superintendent Steve Barlow. I'll read this prepared statement first and then answer any questions you may have. As you've heard from Acting Inspector Chiavetta, we have a child and grandmother affected by toxic substance along with our members. It just goes to show the dynamic calls our officers are attending on a daily basis. Despite the overwhelming impact of the pepper spray, our members went into the residence, checked on a person believed to be in medical distress, finding the person unresponsive. They then kicked open the windows to help ventilate the home and further assistance from paramedics. 5 members suffered side effects and had to be decontaminated. This is just one of many circumstances our officers train to face on a daily basis. More often than not, the calls our members are attending are ever-changing and challenging. We are now seeing drivers of stolen vehicles with zero regard for officer or public safety, unpredictable domestic violence calls, mental health-related incidents requiring a high level of care, skyrocketing numbers of drug overdoses calls with airborne substances, and a danger to all of our first responders, and the subsequent drug-related violences and property crimes that affect many citizens every day. As you are well aware, in the past 4 weeks, we've had 8 homicides. Please know we believe them all to be targeted and none of them are connected. Attended calls for service have steadily increased. These can be 20 to 30 calls waiting in any given district for our officers' attendance. They are generally running from call to call, but it is uncommon for citizens to have to wait for hours for police attendance. As a service, we strive to be as efficient and effective as possible, and we are dedicated to provide this city with the very best. Every single day, our members go out of their way to protect our vulnerable, reassure victims, arrest bad guys, and mentor our youth. I want to say in the end here that I am very proud of each and every officer and that they are doing an exceptional job out there.
How's it possible to keep up with the influx of cases? Normally Calgary has 30 homicides a year. You've had a quarter of that in a month. How is it possible to keep up with that backlog?
We have phenomenal officers, not just in our homicide unit, but in many of our investigative areas that are helping out with these calls. With the support of those units and the members on the street every given day, we're staying on top of it. But it is very, very taxing and it is very trying on all of our members.
What do you attribute this increase to? I know you alluded to some situations that are happening in the city. I know the chief has been pretty adamant that a lot of the issues, including auto theft, are tied to drugs. Can you attribute anything to this?
I can say the drugs are of course one of our biggest issues right now, and it is something that we're tackling every day. To say that it is the only issue would be very, very hard.
With these crimes going up in number, has the amount of police officers per capita stayed the same relatively in that amount of time, even when the crime has gone up?
I think it's hard to get into measuring per capita officers because every jurisdiction is different and the crime is different. We have stayed roughly the same when it comes to per capita, but at the end of the day, it's about being able to respond to those calls and us making the priority ones a priority to the citizens as well.
Any other questions for the superintendent?
Do you feel that in some of these situations the body-worn cameras would be a big help?
I think that's a totally different situation. The body-worn cameras in these situations are going to help us in evidence gathering when we are attending calls, but I don't think it would make a difference on the types of calls we're dealing with here.
Just going back to the per capita thing, do you see like a rise in crime per capita on that side of the coin then, or?
You know what, I wouldn't have that number on the top of my head, so I wouldn't be able to answer that for you, sorry.
There seems to be a few areas of the city that are having a few more issues than others in terms of this spike. I know you talked about it a little bit before when you said please no, but I guess any message to Calgarians or maybe those who live in those areas that about, again, just you guys are on it?
You know what, it's hard to say that it's happening just in one area. Our 8 homicides have been across the city. Our spike in crime is across the city. So to isolate it to one area of the city would be wrong, because we have spikes of property crime in some areas. We have spikes of violent crime in other areas. So I think it would be wrong for me to say it's only in one area.
But I guess any who might think that, I'm not asking you to say that, but just any message to those who might be wondering about this spike they're now seeing or witnessing?
I guess what I'm saying for the citizens of Calgary is that we are staying on top of it, and that the crime rate is going up across the city.